Hello, I'm Amy from mindology.com, and today I want to talk about France. It's snap election season. There's a lot of them that seem to be going on, and I want to talk about that Macron called the snap election, and the voting's due to start 30th of June, 2024. The second round of voting will take place on the 7th of July 2024, and it's very exciting because all of the birth data has a really good Rodden rating, and this is great for astrologers, but of course it does put extra pressure on me to get it right, as I can't blame the data set, so hopefully I can get this right. The only problem I do see me having is the parties that have multiple leaders and coalitions, and the information has been pretty conflicting as to who is the leader of what party as well. But remember, like, comment, subscribe if you like what I'm doing, and if you want a reading with me, you can schedule your appointment at moonmindology.com. So starting off, Ensemble, I've got the leader down as Gabriel Attal, Rassemblement National, Jordan Bardella, Nouveau, New Popular Front, François, Ruffin, and Les Republicains, or the Republicans, that's Eric Ciotti, you know what I mean. So the annoying thing is that I don't have a new government forming date as of yet, so we have to just go by the final day of voting and have a look at that, but it's not going to be completely useful because it's not going to be the actual formation of the new government, but here we go. So first of all, Gabriel Attal, and he is of the Ensemble party. And I know nothing about him other than he is an openly homosexual leader, and I'm not really sure what that has to do with politics, but welcome to 2024. I look at this chart and my first comment is that I don't like Pluto in Libra for a leader. I've spoken about this recently, that Libra is your sign of sort of like social freedoms and stuff like that, and putting Pluto in there, a lot of people who were born from the early 80s up until the early 90s are going to have this a lot. I say pretty much all of them when they fall into that age bracket, and unless there is something to really cancel out that planet, like a really good Libra sign or a strong sign of Libra, I think for the most part I don't think it's a great thing for a leader. It's oppressive, and it will impact on the freedoms of the people, so I don't totally trust people born in this age range, as leaders, of course, not just in general. So moving on, Ketu is in the second house, and this does say to me that, he's going to have a negative impact on the wealth and the national security of France. This house is also linked to food as well, so there could be reductions in that. But if you look at the sign, it's also going to impact the upper echelons of society as well, because Leo is very royal and rich. And then when we look into Taurus, there does seem to be some positivity in small economy, and also this rules your food and agriculture, so that might cancel that out. But this is the 11th house, so foreign contracts and alliances as well will be very important to him. But I do believe that we could be seeing more political power going to external leaders and groups outside of France. And I also have to look at the fact that the moon is in the 12th house, and this is public opinion, but it's the sign of communications, media, and also schooling as well. So there could be a lot of public interest in those things, but it is also the house of endings, scandal and crime, so there could be a lot of fear mongering, and it could impact people and how they feel and how they think. The media could also be used in order to scare people and control them in a way. I don't think people will necessarily be obviously unhappy, but I do think they'll be scared to have an opinion in general, in some respects. The sun is going to be in Pisces, and this is again about crime, drugs, immigration, and things that are hidden. And the Sun is a leader, and in this house of law, immigration, politics and Supreme Courts, you know, there's a lot of free movement there, and there's also secrets, there's stuff going on. The Sun, the leader, is in these houses of making rules and keeping things hidden. So I think that there's probably going to be a load of underhanded things that he does. He is currently in the dasha of Mercury and Mars, and of course this activates the planets in the sky for him, and Mars is going to be in his 10th house, activating that area of life, and Mercury is going to be near his Lagna, or the first house, or the ascendant. Saturn's going to be sitting on Venus, and I don't think this particularly looks positive for him, but Venus is very strong, and the moon will be hugging his first house, which can really give him some popularity and some support. But not only that, he's going through a Jupiter return, which is going to be powerful to support him. So if we look at his D10th chart, it's very powerful, as the first house is in Aries and Mars is also in that house, so he's very powerful. The only problem I see here is that Mercury isn't activated. So unless somebody has a more active D10, it really looks like this guy's going to be doing the best. Jordan Bardella. Again, I know very, very little about this man other than he is very young, in his late 20s, and apparently his own hometown are said to not be voting for him as they're mostly immigrants. Okay, now, moving on, we can see that Pluto is in Scorpio, so we've missed that control over personal freedoms, and instead this is the sign of banking, exports, science and large economy. And having control over this could be a taxation scheme that pulls in those very powerful groups. Jupiter is also over here, so it can be quite extreme because Jupiter expands whatever it goes near, and these two together can actually be quite megalomaniacal. But I do think that large banks and the economy, you know, could be quite out of control in this situation. So the first ruler is Mars, and that goes to the 12th. It goes to the 12th house, and that's conjunct Rahu. And I wouldn't really be surprised if there is terrorism going on here, as well as it's a sign that he could remove immigrants or give it a good go. I think he might be successful actually with this combination. And as it's in Libra, I think, you know, this could make the general public quite unhappy, and we could see a lot of protests and anger around this as well. The moon is conjunct K2, and that's in the 6th house, and I do think that could involve removing military from places, withdrawing from war, but equally having a public unhappiness and a kind of a resistance. But that's nothing new with the French. I think they're the most resistant nation you could probably think of. I think that's whenever I think of the French, I always just think of protests. They're very good at it. They're very talented. So I don't expect that to change, but I think it might get actually stronger underneath this leader here. So I think you could see a lot of resistance. The Sun is very strong in the 10th house, and I think he's going to be very powerful. And I do think that he will push electric travel, whether that's going to be electric cars, trains, planes, things like that. But house and land prices could also go down underneath him. So he's currently in the dasha of Mars and Saturn. So Mars is going to be in his 6th of daily work, and he's going to be going through a Saturn return during this, or around about this time. I think he's going to be going through it this year. And so, you know, this is going to be a defining point of maturity for him. And he's also having a half Jupiter return, which is going to be impacting his philosophies as well. Jupiter is also aspecting his ascendant, which is going to be very good for his ability to come across well during this time. And then if we just move over to looking at the D10, this is a really powerful chart. The sun is exalted in the first, and I believe that this is actually stronger than the ensemble leader. But is it activated? The first house is ruled by Mars. So this is very strong. Remember, in Gabriel Attal's D10, Mars was in its own sign and the Bukti ruler wasn't activated. Well, Jordan has an exalted Mars in the 10th house, which is in the sign of Saturn. Both the 1st and 10th houses in the D10 are activated. So by the dashas, so this could be a winner's chart. And I do think this is the sort of person who will do what he says he's going to do, but overall I think there's going to be a lot of resistance from the people. So François Ruffin of the Nouveau Front Populair. All I know about this guy is that he's a filmmaker, and I miss saying his surname in my head. Every time I look at it, I think François Ruffin or Francois Ruffin. So let's see if my inability to read is close to the truth or not. So economy, that is going to be something that's going to be all over the place under him. Small business, wealth, security, it's going to go up and down to extremes. And all of this is happening in the sign of Libra, so this is social freedoms, and it can create a lot of change in that area. He also has Pluto on the ascendant, so he is a power seeker, and you know, he can be somebody who's a little bit over the top as well. We can have a powerful communication, and he will have the media well under control. Neptune in the 3rd, you know, I think it's going to give some obscurity to borders and relationships with surrounding countries as well. Jupiter is quite strong with the moon, so there can be good relationships and open communication with opponents as well. And this is going to be quite good for warfare, as in preventing, I think. So, I think. But Venus is in the sign of Leo, and that's all about rich people, and so there's going to be a lot of money and culture that's going to be controlled by the rich and the people at the top. But I think he's the sort of person that could ban physical money, because Neptune is in the house of local and because Neptune is in the house of local travel, I don't think he's going to do anything with petrol vehicles. I think he's just going to ban money and, you know, go, yeah, sure, just let these vehicles go all over the place. It's fine. So I think he does have links to oil companies as well, just because of the placement of that. So he is in the dasha of Venus and Saturn. Of course, Venus is going to be in his 11th house. And the 11th is quite a supportive house, and it has to do with allies as well. So he could be supporting allies. Saturn's going to be in the 6th. So this is going to be about his work. And I don't know whether he's going to be supporting others on the final day of the election, but I don't see his chart particularly lighting up. His D10, the ruler is Sun, and Mars is in his 1st, and the 10th house is also ruled by Mars. And so this is such a strong chart. But the problem is it's not being activated by the dasha rulers. If he was in the dasha of Mars, you know, he really would have been a phenomenal rival to the Jordan guy. Jordan, not the place. What is his name? Jordan Bardella. Jordan Bardella. That's the guy. Okay, so moving on to Eric Ciotti of the Republicans. The Republicains. Les Republicains. I don't know anything about this guy. But he's bald and he's coming up to a Saturn return. That's fine. That's the extent of knowledge about him. And, you know, this is a bit of a shame, really, because the first thing I see is Venus and the Moon are in Libra, you know, the sign of social freedoms. The problem is that you've got terrorism potentially in the 2nd house, and quite a lot of problems with the economy and small business, and a lot of power goes to the media as well as communications. But I think overall, I think he probably would have been a good leader. But when you look at his dasha, Venus and Sun, You know, Venus is in the 10th house and his Sun is in the 9th, so, you know, there's some time in the limelight, but his D10 just is not activated. And, you know, his first ruler is Mars and the 10th ruler is Saturn. Saturn is conjunct a very strong Sun, but, you know, it's just not activated enough to win against these other really, really strong contenders here. So just to recap, so from the most to the least powerful when I'm looking at their charts and their D10s, we've got the Rassemblement National, Jordan Bardella, Ensemble, Gabriel Attal in second. Third, the New Popular Front, François, Ruffin, and so he's in third, and in fourth is the Republicans, Eric Ciotti. Overall, I think the Rassemblement could win. I think it's going to be a tough fight though, but I think it could be verging on sort of like I'd say a clear cut. I don't think that they're, based on the D10s, I don't think there's going to be much confusion or squabbling about this. But I don't think France is in for an easy next few years either, as there is a lot of things to face. It's a shame that we don't have an inaugural chart for the formation of the new government, as I could have used that to kind of confirm or deny what I was seeing in the rest of these charts as to what I thought was actually going to be going forward. But, you know, Macron is going through a weak dasha himself, and he's not going to be very strong. So his baby, if you like, the Ensemble, that can also show us that there is a weakness there from his side, even though he's not the leader, but he is one of the people behind the scenes. And then you look at Rassemblement, and that's all backed by Marine Le Pen. And if you look at her chart and what she's going on at the moment, she's stronger than Macron, and her D10's activated when Macron's isn't. But, you know, would she have been able to go up against Gabriel Attal with her chart? No, she would have lost. She is too weak, absolutely too weak. And I think that was why she could never win. And getting this new Jordan Bardella in is, you know, on the side of a plan to win. It was a really clever move on her part. And Macron did exactly the same thing, but I just think that Jordan is slightly stronger than Gabriel. But, you know, it's really difficult to gauge, as France has shown over and over again that despite Macron's lack of popularity, he has actually always been really popular. You know, he's the first president to be elected twice in over 20 years in France, and that says something. And, you know, the French voting population seem to be almost pro-Europe for the most part, and yet this recent vote has said exactly the opposite. But how can people change their minds so quickly in, you know, a couple of years? And I know that support for Le Pen has been growing, but how could, like, especially when I'm just talking about what the news says, an extreme right-wing government, when you had sort of like left-wing, how could the whole population or a large portion of the population switch so suddenly, which seems very, very strange to me. But, you know, we don't have very long to wait, and I'm nervous about whether I'm going to be correct on this. And it's so rare that you have a good set of data, so I'm really going to be sitting on the edge of my seat. And I can only hope that people get what they want and what they vote for. I think that's really important. But yeah, so let's see how I do on this round of predictions. But yeah, thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye.